You know, I was doing pretty well, and then a couple of weeks ago, the chemotherapy got the best of me, and I got sent into the hospital, and I got diagnosed with congestive heart failure and renal failure, which sounds worse than it is. I said to my doctors, can you get me healthy enough to get to DC on Thursday, because it's important. I mean, this is a disease where we don't have a lot of advocates because they don't live very long. And so I don't know how much longer I have, but I want to spend it raising awareness and getting people to know about pancreatic cancer.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to introduce Dr. Randy Pausch, who will be testifying about the critical importance about funding pancreatic cancer research.
I'm here on behalf of the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. Pancreatic cancer is a terrible, terrible disease. I became sort of an accidental celebrity because after I was diagnosed, and I want to be very clear, I'm a terminal cancer patient. I'm not even supposed to be alive today. In August, I was given 3 to 6 months. I've had very fortunate response to the palliative chemo, but this ain't going to last too much longer. As you said, I was in the hospital last Monday. I was diagnosed with congestive heart failure and renal failure. And I said to the doctors, can I get healthy enough to go to DC on Thursday? We don't have advocates for this disease because they don't live long enough. We don't have a Michael J. Fox because people die too fast. Pancreatic cancer is absolutely ruthless. I became an accidental celebrity because I gave a lecture at Carnegie Mellon after I was diagnosed. There's an academic tradition of the last lecture. Hypothetically, if you were going to die, what would you tell your students? I got to do it for real. I gave a lecture for my children, but I gave it in an academic setting. It got loose on YouTube, and damned if 6 million people haven't watched it. But I want you to understand that pancreatic cancer is one of those unusual diseases. The statistics are pretty clear. If you get it, you're dead within a year with a 75% chance. When you talk about survival, 4% of people make it to 5 years. When I presented first with symptoms, we thought I had hepatitis. When we got the diagnosis, my wife said, gee, I guess you'd trade for hepatitis. And I said, honey, I'd trade for AIDS in a heartbeat, in a flash. I'd love to trade for AIDS. This subcommittee is pretty familiar with AIDS. You were some of the first funding that was provided. I don't think we've beaten AIDS, but I think we've made huge progress against the disease that many people thought would be impossible. Pancreatic cancer right now is the 4th leading killer amongst cancers. More interestingly, it is one of the only cancers you can point to and say, in the last 30 years, we've made no progress. That's terrible. There are so many cancers where you can see, particularly with childhood cancers, where the 4% survival became 90% survival. It makes me feel really good to be an American to see the researchers let loose and win like that. With pancreatic cancer, I learned a new word, nihilistic. It means given up, too hard. I don't believe in too hard. I believe that by funding pancreatic cancer research, we will be going after the hardest problem. And I'm a trained researcher. I know that if you go after the hardest problem, you can't go for the halfway solutions. I mean, not that I'm not a fan of chemotherapy and radiation. They've kept me alive, but the real answers are going to be in genetic, and things like pancreatic force you into those kinds of solutions because the halfway measures just aren't good enough against that strong a disease. This is a disease you can't protect yourself against. I never smoked, I never drank, I exercised every day, I tried to eat right, and it just comes like a thunderbolt out of the blue. Part of my job is to put a face on the disease. At the risk of being a little bit overly dramatic, I want to show you a picture. This is my family. This is Dylan. He's 6 years old. He loves dinosaurs. This is Logan. He's 4. He's Super Logan. He has a cape. He runs around the house saving everyone. This is Chloe. In May, she turns 2. And this is my widow. That's not a grammatical construction you get to use every day. But it's not many diseases where you know it will be fatal. And I have metastasized to the liver and spleen, which means that I have a 100% chance of dying, and there isn't anybody in the medical community who won't bet that I won't be dead by the end of the year. And this woman is going to raise these 3 children by herself very bravely, because I won't be there to help her. And all I can ask today is that everyone keep in their minds that pancreatic cancer is a disease that I think we can beat, but it's going to take more continued courage and funding from our government to help protect us from the things that we can't protect ourselves from. Thank you.
Is there a starting point? Are there areas of research that should be looked at but are not being looked at?
I'm a researcher myself, and I'm trying to become the most informed pancreatic cancer patient in the world. And I go and talk to the researchers, researcher to researcher, and I'll tell you, it pretty much stinks when I meet a hotshot researcher and I know I can just ask the question, which parent? We wouldn't have gotten very far with breast cancer research if we'd only limited it to people who went into it because they lost their mother. People right now who are young researchers aren't heading towards pancreatic cancer research because it's wildly underfunded, and it's always been underfunded. I think part of the trick is to seed the junior hotshots with the kind of grants that are provided for young researchers. I think this is going to be cracked by somebody younger, somebody who comes at it with a genomic approach. But I think it's going to have to be a breakthrough. I don't think it's going to be another chemotherapy or radiation tweak. And I firmly believe that there are plenty of bright people out there that want to attack it. And what they need is they need the strong sense that the funding is there. Because I've been a junior researcher, and I've looked over in computer science, what shall I work on? And I know that the smart people work on what there's money to work on, because they're pretty ruthless in their careers, and they should be. So I don't think it's at all the same game it was even 10 or 15 years ago. I think that we've already made some strides in figuring out some of the genetic precursors, and there's no doubt there's a genetic component to this. I mean, as the previous speaker said, don't think I don't go to sleep every night without worrying about, are these kids going to get my genes? And people say, are you worried? And I say, well, the good news is pancreatic cancer doesn't normally strike until later. And if the money's there, I'd bet everything that by the time my kids are my age, we'll have it licked. If the money isn't there, then I wouldn't be very confident at all.
Thank you very much for sharing your story. And let me simply say I am somewhat familiar with the problem because my brother-in-law died of pancreatic cancer.
Sorry to hear.
So I want to assure you we will do everything we can to try to change that picture. I admire your courage, and we all wish you very well.
I feel sort of a sense of, I don't know if the right word is obligation, but I feel like this is something I can do that very few other people could do right now, and so I wanted to do it.